What's up, y'all? It's your girl Veronica, and welcome back to my channel. This is PM Mastermind, and this is day 8 of the road to the PMP. Question mark, question mark. I'm really excited that you guys are back, and this is something that we haven't done before, but something that I absolutely love to do. And today, what we're going to do is go over some PMP practice questions. So, you may be asking yourself, how do I kind of break down these questions? How do I understand what they're really asking? How do I know how to interpret the information and kind of read between the lines? So we're just going to go over about 5 practice questions today so that I can kind of go through line by line and tell you how you should be assessing these practice questions and how you know how to answer them. Another thing is, if you've been curious how I teach, this video is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to teach the way that I typically teach. And if you've attended one of my classes in the past, you know that I'm a pretty direct instructor. So really excited to give you guys a little glimpse into what you can expect if you decide to join our boot camp on July 19th, which is coming up soon. And yeah, before we move forward, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, like, comment, share this video, all that good stuff. And without any further ado, let's do some PMP practice questions. And most importantly, let's have some fun. Oh, okay. There we go. I was like, what is happening here? Okay. Number 1, you are a construction project manager and have been recently hired in a well known company as the manager of a highly crucial project. Congratulations. The project is expected to be completed in 2 years. During the project initiation phase, you realize that some regulatory and environmental requirements have not been considered in the contract. Uh oh. Failure to meet the mentioned requirements will negatively affect your company's reputation, but meeting them will require more time and cost, which will lead to budget and time overruns. In that case, there's also a chance that the client decides to cancel the project. What would you do in that situation? Option A is your first and immediate action is to disclose your discovery to the project stakeholders and solicit their viewpoints. Option B is this requires a scope change notification, and that should be written immediately. Option C is since there is only a probability, it does not need an immediate action. Just try to gather more information as the project goes on and decide later. Or D, as a seasoned construction project manager, contact the regulatory body to find out some workarounds for your project. So I'm going to give you guys a moment here so that you can kind of think about this, and then we are going to switch over to the next slide. Okay, it's been a moment. If you need more time, pause this video and then start it again. But let's actually go and see what the correct answer is and why. So the correct answer is A. Your first and immediate action is to disclose your discovery to the project stakeholders and solicit their viewpoints. All right. So before I go into why this is the right answer, let's look at what the wrong answers were. B says this requires a scope change notification that should be written immediately. Pause right there. All right. You're not going to immediately jump into writing some type of scope change notification in this situation because you don't even really understand the full aspects of what's happening, right? You realize that some requirements haven't been considered in the contract, but we don't know exactly what the downstream impacts are. Right now, we're just kind of guessing and still evaluating what the situation is. And again, when you're a project manager, you are not the subject matter expert. You have subject matter experts on your team. You have stakeholders that you are accountable to. You have a sponsor that you are accountable to. So you don't just go off willy nilly writing scope changes. That is not how that goes down, right? This is a team sport. So you, as the PM, are not the end all be all in this world. Okay, so that's something really important to remember. That's why B is not the right answer. C says, since this is only a probability, you don't need an immediate action. Just try to gather more information as the project goes ahead and decide later on. That's wrong. And a big reason why is because if you don't say anything to anybody about what you recently discovered, you're basically withholding information from your clients, from your stakeholders, from your sponsor, and from your team. You're just keeping this information to yourself, hoping that things don't go wrong. And as my mentor used to always say, hope is not a plan. Okay. One of the most important parts of being a project manager is maintaining communication with all parties involved. There needs to be a level of transparency and really respect amongst you, your stakeholders, your sponsors, and your team. So you never, ever, ever withhold information. It's not appropriate, and it's really a violation of PMI's code of ethics. D, as a seasoned construction project manager, contact the regulatory body to find out some workarounds for your project. Now, this is a good option, but the reason why it is not the option is because the very first thing that you do in these situations is that you have to disclose your discovery. You have to disclose your discovery, right? Okay, sure. You want to evaluate and go and call around and get some workarounds. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't disclose this information to other people immediately, then you're skipping steps. The first step is always disclosure. You need to keep your stakeholders in the loop. God forbid that you go and you start trying to evaluate all these workarounds and then your stakeholders hear from someone else what the situation was. You do not want that because it's immediately a breach of trust between you and your stakeholders. You are the point person, right? You are the leader of this initiative. And a leader is going to make sure that all the appropriate parties are informed as soon as they know that something's up or there could be something coming down the pipe or a new risk has been identified. That level of transparency and communication cannot be overstated in value. Okay, so that's something that I think is really important. Don't just go in trying to do workarounds. And another thing that I want to call out is that PMI will throw in these types of answer options to throw you off, and they're actually called hero answers. They'll be like, oh, the project manager comes in and saves the day because they took initiative and did this and went and solved the problem without having to ask anybody else. That's always the wrong answer. It's always the wrong answer. They are there to trick you. PMI does not value heroes, they value process. Okay? So keep that in mind when you're looking at these different answer options. Now, again, the reason why this is the right answer is actually based on PMI's code of ethics. All right. When you look at the code of ethics, it talks a lot about this transparency. You have to ensure this level of communication with your stakeholders, with your sponsors, with your clients, and with your team. You're not the end all be all. You don't need to go off and try to figure everything out by yourself. What you do need to do is make sure that you're communicating this information to all the parties that are going to be impacted by it and then brainstorming a solution as a group. Okay. So hopefully you guys all got that one right. Let's try another one. Your sponsor will be leaving your project soon due to other obligations. Oh, sad. She informs you that her role will be filled with 2 new people. Hey, she assures you that this should not affect the communication complexity of the team since you are only going from 11 to 12 members. Is your sponsor correct? This is what they want to know. If you add another member to your team, does it make communication more complex? Yes or no? That's the question. Option number A, yes, because your sponsor is always right. B, yes, adding one additional person adds only one more communication channel for an 11-member team. C, no, agile teams should be as small as possible. Or D, no, adding one person adds more than one communication channel for an 11-member team. So I'm going to give you guys a moment. Take this in, think about what you think the right answer is, and then we'll move forward. All right. If you need more than that moment, pause the video and then press play again, because let's take a look at it. The correct answer is D, okay? Adding one more person adds more than one communication channel for an 11-member team. There's actually a calculation that goes with this, and the calculation is down there at the bottom. It is n times n minus 1 divided by 2 is equal to the number of communication channels for a team. N is the number of members for a team, okay? So you are going from 11 to 12 members. So if you only have 11 members, then you have 55 channels of communication based on this calculation. If you bump that up to 12, right, and you input 12 as in, all of a sudden you have 66 channels of communication. So you have added 11 channels of communication. Okay? Now, you don't need to have this calculation memorized to be able to answer this question. You just need to understand that when you add one person to your team, it's definitely going to add several channels of communication to your project. But I want to talk about why these other answer options are not right. Option A says, yes, because your sponsor is always right. Incorrect. Okay, if you have any experience at all, you know that your sponsor is not always right. A lot of the times they're wrong. It's not because they have malintent, it's because they just don't know. Okay, we're going to give them a pass on that, but your sponsor is never always right. And another thing that you want to look out for is that PMI will do this thing where they use definitive language, such as always or never. 9 times out of 10, if you see definitive language in the answer option, it's probably not the right answer. Because project management can be very fluid in nature. There's very few times when it's going to be always this or never this. That's something important to keep in mind, because that will give you kind of an opportunity to very quickly get rid of some answer options. All right. So we know A, not going to work. B, yes, adding one additional person only adds one more communication channel for an 11-member team. We just discovered why that wasn't right. Okay, so we know now that's wrong. C, no, agile teams should be as small as possible. I'm sorry, where in the question did they say anything about it being an agile project? They said your sponsor is leaving due to some other obligations, and now you're going to have 2 people instead of 1 in her position. Who said anything about agile? Who said anything about a methodology? It does not apply, period. So if you're going through these answer options, you can immediately say, A, that's not right. Cross it out, because there is a cross out feature on your exam. And C, makes no sense, doesn't apply, cross it out. Okay, and then you'll have it narrowed down to B or D, and you would use your knowledge to say, hey, D is going to be the right answer. Okay, check out another one. You're managing a software development project, which should be completed in 18 months according to the project contract and schedule. Yeah. Your customer has recently faced regulatory changes that require your project to be finished 2 months earlier, and he asked you to do so. Goodness gracious. How will you approach this situation? A, inform the customer of the impacts of his requirement to project constraints, and after getting the required approvals, crash the project. B, accept the customer's request and cut parts of the project scope to meet the new deadline. C, stick to your original schedule and tell the customer that once the contract is signed, the project duration won't change under any circumstances. Or D, cut the duration of all project activities across the board to meet the requirement. I'm going to give you guys a moment to think over this. All right. If you need more time, pause the video because we're jumping into it. All right. The correct answer is A. Okay, you're going to inform the customer of the impacts of his requirement to your project constraints, and then after you get your required approvals, you're going to crash the project. Before we go in to why this is the right answer, let's look at the wrong answers. B, accept the customer's request and cut parts of the project scope to meet the new deadline. I'm sorry, what? What? There you go again. Being the hero, being the end all be all. Somebody tells you need to finish something 2 months earlier, and you're like, say less. Boom, cut parts of the scope. What? What? No, you cannot do that. Are you just going to show up to work the next day and be like, hey, by the way, talk to the client. They said we had to be done 2 months earlier, so I just cut out a big old chunk of the project and we're just going to keep running. That's like not a viable option at all. Okay. There's several steps that have to happen before you can cut out parts of the scope. Everything about the project is based on the scope. Everything is dependent upon the scope. So you can't just cut out chunks of the scope. That's not an option at all. C, stick to your original schedule and tell the customer that once the contract is signed, the project duration won't change under any circumstances. Do you want this customer to be a customer again? Because if you tell your customer, your client, you already signed the contract, sorry, buddy, you're out of luck. It's not going to happen for you. I can assure you they will never want to do business with you again in the future, right? So there needs to be some flexibility there. It's extremely unprofessional for you to just tell your clients, sorry, you're out of luck. Sounds like a personal problem. All right, D, cut the duration of all project activities across the board to meet the requirement. Like, what? You're going to cut the duration of all your activities? I want you to just think about why this is not a good option. Who is executing your project's activities? It's your team. You came in and said, hey, y'all, you're going to have this amount of time. And then the next day you're going to wake up and be like, just kidding. Everybody's got half that amount of time. Good luck and may the odds be ever in your favor. It's not a viable option. It doesn't work. And again, it's a hero answer. You don't get to just go in there and cut the duration of activities one day and come in and tell everybody, you guys will figure it out. I don't understand. What's the problem? It doesn't work that way. So that's why those answers are wrong. Now, the key indicator in the correct answer is number one, you have to inform your customer, communicate with them, transparency of the impacts of this requirement to your project constraints. So the very first thing we're doing again is having a conversation. Hey, I understand this is what you're saying. This is how it's going to impact this initiative. Okay, that's part one. Number two, after getting the required approvals, thank you. There's no heroes here. There's a chain of command. There's a change control process that we have to follow. Remember, PMI values process. They value that because we're not just out here willy-nilly doing whatever we want. We're following the process. That's why we have processes. Okay. And the last part of this says crash the project. For you to know that this is the right answer, you have to know what the word crash means. So in project management, crashing is a technique that's used to shorten your project schedule by adding more resources to critical tasks. The way that I teach this to my clients and in my classes is that crashing a project is like throwing more people at the problem, right? So instead of shortening our durations and telling our team members, figure it out, do more with less time, we're saying, hey, you're going to have to do more with less time, but I'm going to give you more resources so that it doesn't put all the pressure on just you. Now, the key with crashing is that it typically is going to impact costs because you're bringing in more resources and more people cost more money. Okay? But that is why A is the right answer. You're going to start with that communication and transparency. Then you're going to go through the process to get the approvals. Then you're going to crash the project. Okay? Let's do another one. According to the contract, your customer has assigned one of his staff to your project office to attend the meetings and contribute to the decision making. Great. However, this person is too confrontational and his behavior to your project team members is intimidating. What should be your action in this situation? A, ask the customer to replace the person. B, you unilaterally decide to isolate the person and don't let him in the project meetings. C, since the person is assigned by your client, you don't have any authority over him, so don't do anything. Or D, confront the person about his behavior and its impact on the project. Also, inform the customer about the issue. I'm going to give you guys a moment to deliberate, and then we'll cover it. Okay, if you need more time, pause the video right here. Okay, let's do it. Number one, I love this question because this is not a far-fetched situation. This is very likely something that you will encounter at some point in your project management career. Okay. The correct answer is D. Confront the person about their behavior and its impact on the project, and then inform the customer about the issue. So before I say why that's right, let's go over the ones that are wrong. A. Ask the customer to replace the person. What? This is your client. And now you're just like, hey, Joe's getting on my nerves. He's got to go. Give me somebody else. Come on. No, that's not going to work. You haven't even told Joe that he's getting on your nerves. You haven't even told him that the rest of the team is intimidated by him. What you're going to find in your career as a project manager is that a lot of people that you work with just lack self awareness. They have no idea they're being annoying, confrontational, or intimidating people. No clue because they just walk around like what they do doesn't impact others. It's more common than you think. Okay. You can't just ask for a person to be replaced and no conversation has been had. That's just poor leadership. Okay. B, you unilaterally decide to isolate this person and don't let him in the project meetings. I want you to know that this is a hilarious option. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it, but it's not the correct thing to do because it's childish. You don't like somebody and you feel like they don't fit in with the group, they're intimidating, they're annoying, they're confrontational, whatever it is. So you're just going to isolate them? You're just going to cancel the meeting on just their calendar alone so they don't know that you're having it? Come on. Come on. No, that doesn't work. But I do love it. I think that that's hilarious. But no, don't do that. C, since the person is assigned by your client and you don't have any authority over him, you don't do anything. That doesn't work either. And the reason why is because as a project manager, you have a responsibility to both the project and your team to protect them both. If it's adversely impacting the project, we got a problem. If it's adversely impacting your team, we have an even bigger issue. Because the only way that the project is successful is if your team is successful. And your role as the project manager is to clear obstacles for them. They shouldn't have to deal with any mess. Okay? Especially when it can be prevented by checking somebody's attitude. That's why that doesn't work for us. The reason D is the perfect answer is because your role as a leader involves you to sometimes have difficult conversations. You need to let this person know, hey, I've noticed that your behavior in the past few meetings has been very confrontational and unprofessional, and I don't appreciate it. So either we resolve this here and now, today, and you're going to come with a better attitude and stop being intimidating to the team, or we're going to have to think of another solution. I'm also going to be having this conversation with the client because I know you're one of their representatives. And maybe you don't go in that harsh. Maybe you start by saying, have you noticed that when you're in the meetings, there seems to be confrontation that crops up every time you take the floor and speak? You can do it that way, whatever you need to do. But the conversation has to be had because you're a leader. So you can't be passive. You can't be like, oh man, this guy's really bad and he's really intimidating and I don't know. I'm just going to ignore the problem and hope it goes away. It never goes away. It just gets worse. The more you ignore any problem, the worse it's going to get. Okay? I hope you're noticing a pattern here about having conversations. In all these questions, have a conversation, keep transparency, make sure that you're verbalizing when something is going on. That's a pattern with PMI. You got to recognize that. Last one, okay? The majority of the project management software applications use the blank method to lead the project schedule network diagram. I'm sorry, to build the project schedule network diagram. A, leads and lags. B, critical diagramming. C, precedence diagramming. Or D, activity on arrows diagramming. I'll give you guys a moment to deliberate. All right, y'all ready? If not, pause it. It'll give you more time. If so, let's go. The correct answer is C, precedence diagramming. Okay, the majority of project management software is going to leverage precedence diagramming when it's building your schedule network diagram. And the reason why is because it's a very easy visual tool for you to say task A, then task B, then task C, or task A, task B, then we can do C and D at the same time. Okay, it's got arrows. It'll show you that you can go from task A into task B or the opposite way around. And it also shows when you can do tasks in conjunction with one another or run them in parallel, is how we say it in project management. Okay. So I hope that this video was helpful for you guys. If you don't know what leads and lags are, if you don't know what critical diagramming is, if you don't know what activity on arrows diagramming is, I do implore you to look it up. Okay, it's a little bit hard to explain without showing you, which is why I'm not going to cover it. This is one of those things where if you know, you know. You just kind of need to know this information. But look these up. Okay. I don't want to run over time anymore. This video is very long, but I hope it was really helpful. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll do some more of these so that we can go over more project management, PMP questions again. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the road to the PMP. Thanks.